And now, back by popular demand, let's go to the phones. Is this U.S. Senator James Lankford talking to us?
It is. I'm not sure it's by popular demand, but it is by demand. How about that?
Well, let me tell you something. In this room, you're popular, and we demand that you join us every month. Senator, good morning.
Nathan, everybody. Good to hear both of you guys. You guys doing well?
We're doing really well.
Except for the heat, we're doing okay. Price of oil stabilized, so we're in a better mood this morning.
Yeah, well, it's stabilized low. That's the problem.
Yeah,
right?
that's a problem.
We'll see if we can get that turned around in the days ahead.
All right. Iran has been in the news forever, but here in the United States, and specifically in the energy industry for the last 6 or 7 months, after sanctions were lifted basically from the West, they're allowed to put oil on the market and start trading, and that's helping add to the current glut right now. But a different sort of story about Iran has come out this week, and let me read to you the opening paragraph of a story in this morning's Oklahoma newspaper dealing with you and Iran. Here we go. Senator James Lankford said Wednesday he would continue to press the Obama administration for details of a $400 million cash payment to Iran, despite strong denials from the White House that the money was related to the release of American hostages early this year. Catch us up to speed for our listeners who may not know what the backstory is here. What's going on?
So a year ago, July the 1st, we had a big birthday party for the Iran nuclear deal, where the president signs this nuclear deal and says we are going to now lift a lot of the sanctions on Iran. We're going to give them 10 years of a hiatus, and they're going to work towards a nuclear weapon 10 years from now, but at least it's not today. It was not a great deal, was not a good idea. But then there's a finalization day, what they call implementation day, and that day there were hostages, 4 Americans that were in jail in Iran, including one of our journalists that was a pastor there, and other individuals that were there in Iran that had been held, accused of being spies, when by far they're not spies, they're just Americans they were holding. Iran released those 4 hostages at the same time an unmarked cargo plane full of $400 million in cash lands in Iran. And the administration is trying to tell everyone, no, those two are not connected. It was coincidental that we sent $400 million cash to Iran the same day that 4 hostages were released. They're not connected. It just begs all credibility to be able to say that. And it's really stark to be able to hear the administration trying to dance around and say, we didn't just pay for a hostage release. We already know they sent 7 Iranian prisoners that were prisoners for terrorist actions here back to Iran, and we released those prisoners when we got 4 of our hostages back that were being falsely accused of being spies. But now we've added to it $400 million in cash. Now there's another $1.3 billion that is still unaccounted for that the administration also says that they sent to Iran. All this is connected to as strange as it sounds to be able to follow the story. In 1979, with the fall of the Shah and the transition of the new government, the Shah was in the process of an arms purchase from the United States of $400 million. Well, every president since Jimmy Carter has not recognized the Ayatollahs as the rightful leaders of Iran and has not returned that money. Our president returned it the same day they released hostages and sent Iran $1.3 billion in interest payments for the money that we had held since 1979 of there.
Well,
it just keeps on coming.
We just got so much extra money laying around, right?
You know, the painful part about this, on top of everything else as painful as that is that the president's in the process of pushing to decrease military spending in the United States. Iran announced when they got the $1.7 billion that they were using that $1.7 billion entirely for their military to be able to recapitalize and rebuild their military. So we literally cut defense spending in the United States so the president could send $1.7 billion to Iran's military.
Isn't there something set up where there has to be more than one signature on the check? I mean, good gravy.
If there is, probably the second signature is Vice President Biden.
Yeah, and it's Secretary of State.
It is hard to imagine. I started about 2 months ago with a bill to provide greater transparency in what's called the Judgment Fund. That's why the Wall Street Journal recognized some of the things that we were doing, but we're pushing on this. Myself and a senator from Nebraska, she and I have both started this process. We're both pushing on it, and we put 2 basic things. Number one is we don't send any payment to any country that is a state sponsor of terrorism, according to our list. Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and we just sent them $1.7 billion American tax dollars. The second part of this was very clear. We've got to have transparency of how it happened and what's happening. We're still fighting them to be able to find out the transition. We only know the $400 million. We don't know the $1.3 billion and how it was done and when it was done. We don't know if there's another plane or an armada of planes delivering cash to them. We have no idea how this was all done, and we just want to be able to get the facts and the details.
It does look fishy. Do you believe deep down that the release of the hostages was directly related to this payment?
Well, I do, actually, and it's because the country of Iran stepped out and made that statement immediately that the two were connected. So while Kerry the whole time is saying, no, they're not connected, we're just doing them simultaneously, Iran is saying, yeah, we wouldn't have done this deal if we didn't have this. These are connected. And so even if Kerry and the president continue to say, as they do, it was two different negotiating teams negotiating for this. They just happened to do it simultaneously. Again, it goes back to the basic question. Our president and Secretary Kerry can continue to say unrelated as long as Iran is saying, yes, they certainly are related, and we wouldn't have made the deal without it. Everyone knows who to believe on it.
Well, wouldn't you think in an administration, even as the Bible teaches, the right hand should know what the left hand's doing?
They both knew. There's no question.
Sure.
They had two active teams in active negotiations simultaneous. They're basically saying they were in two different rooms, and so they weren't connected. That's absurd. If one's in conference room A and the other one's in conference room B, they're definitely still working together on it. Again, everyone sees it. The evidence continues to come out on it. It's more and more painful what's happening. Iran is using that money to be able to finance what's happening in Syria right now. They're funding Hezbollah. They're funding the coup that's in Yemen. They're working towards developing a coup in Bahrain. They're just a large state sponsor of terrorism and a thug in the Middle East, and painfully so, we're funding them now.
Now, do people think that if Hillary Clinton gets the presidency, this type of stuff is going to end?
Oh, I don't think they think it's going to end. I mean, she's made statements publicly that she agrees with the president on this. She doesn't think the two of them are connected. She's still trying to do the same dance to say, yes, it happened on the same day. Yes, it happened with the same group. And yes, Iran says that they're connected. But I'm not sure if they were connected. And so she's trying to do the constant dance around it. And that's the painful part, is that we realize we'll have 4 more years of this.
Oh, boy.
We're talking to United States Senator James Lankford, Republican of Oklahoma City, here on the Big Chief Plant Services Exploring Energy Show. Sean Wilson, Nathan Brewer. Senator, the last time we spoke, you were either on your way to Cleveland or in Cleveland for the Republican National Convention. How did it go?
You know, it was an interesting time. The first 2 days were pretty chaotic. That was pretty public. Just the chaos. And the last 2 days were pretty well organized, and a lot of things got laid out. There was a very common conversation on a couple of things that really unifies a lot of the party. One is that people will look side by side at the policies of Donald Trump and the policies of Hillary Clinton. There's no question for conservatives to say the policies of Donald Trump are a lot closer to where we are. The platform that came out of Cleveland as far as the baseline of where we are was a very good conservative platform statement. It's basically, this is what we believe and this is what we want to be able to do. And then the Supreme Court is still the primary issue. Whoever is the next president will select the justices that will determine for a generation where things go in our country based on the law and how the law will be interpreted. So there's a lot on the line. There are a lot of unifying features. I will tell you, I'm one that I don't particularly like how Donald Trump speaks. I don't like his swagger. I don't want my children to speak that way. And I'm not going to speak that way about people and to people. But I've got to be able to set personality aside and say the Supreme Court's on the line and the future direction of the country as far as policies on the line. It's also been interesting coming out of the convention how many positive comments there were about Mike Pence. Mike Pence is literally the first hire for Donald Trump, and he's always said, I hire good people. I don't know much better people than Mike Pence. That guy's just an incredible human being and a father and a leader and a governor and a former House member. He's articulate on the issues, extremely conservative. He came out to the podium the first time he spoke to that whole group in Cleveland and said, I'm a Christian, I'm a conservative, and I'm a Republican in that order. And the whole room just lit up saying, okay, this is a very different voice than what we hear from Donald Trump. But it also, Donald Trump says, this is the person I wanted to hire, and then I'm going to hire, and this is the kind of administration I'm going to have. It was a pretty good signal.
Well, you know, even great businessmen, even though they may, take on characteristics of body parts. There is a situation where they will surround themselves with good people because they understand that's how good leaders lead. They get
Right.
good people and they give them with empowerment, with accountability, and then everybody going forward. So I'm excited about Pence as well. It's good
Yep,
choice.
He's a really solid choice. I mean, he's the flip side of the coin. You've got Donald Trump's New York City swagger, and you've got Mike Pence's aw shucks Midwestern humility, and it's a pretty good pair.
Well, I thought it was interesting that Mike Pence went ahead and said, "Yeah, I really like the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. I think he's a great guy. I endorse him." We're still waiting on Ryan and Trump to make nice. How long until that happens?
You know what? I have to tell you, I don't know if they will or they will continue to. I think they'll just have a peaceful truce to say we both want to accomplish the same things. We're going to do it two different ways. But what's interesting to me is when, and I hope he is, Trump is elected on that, because I'd much rather have Trump than Hillary Clinton. I think Ryan and Trump will be great partners on a lot of things because they'll bring two different perspectives of a conservative vision and to be able to help drive it. And so that little competition and a little combat in Congress, between Congress and the White House, is not unhealthy as a country, as long as we're actually working to solve things, not just yell at people. When you just yell, you're not fixing anything. If you're arguing it out until you get to resolution, that's a good thing for us.
Is there anything going on in Washington, D.C. regarding whether it's EPA, drilling on federal lands, any kind of restrictions, anything to do with the price of oil that our energy audience really needs to know this morning?
Yeah, I would tell you there's a lot of fight right now back and forth just in the regulatory world. Congress is not voting in August, which may or may not be a big deal to a lot of people, but I would tell you that the biggest part that's moved on energy has not been a vote that's occurred in Congress. It's been the regulations coming out of the administration. So Congress doesn't have to be there for them to be able to put regulations out, and they're constantly doing it. Waters of the U.S. is still on hold. The courts have held that. We've got several energy pieces that may come up in September that are some smaller pieces on energy efficiency and some of those things. But most of the big energy issues moving through Congress won't happen until later this year, if they happen under this administration at all. The one to watch is to be able to watch energy regulations. Now, if the administration, what's called finalizes any regulation in the next several months, if we have a different president in January, we can overthrow all of those regulations with one vote. There's a bill, there's a law called the Congressional Review Act that any regulation that's done at the end of a presidency, we can kick out early in the next presidency. So we're in that window now where finalized new regs are very vulnerable to being kicked out in a new administration quickly. But we'll have to be able to watch and see. I wouldn't anticipate they do a lot of new regs here at the end just because they know they're vulnerable.
Wow.
Senator, we're just about out of time. Our special guest this morning has been United States Senator James Lankford, Republican of Oklahoma City. Senator, thank you for carving out some time for us. We'll let you get back to work and look forward to talking to you next month, okay?
Thanks, guys.
Keep up the good
See
work.
ya.